So, Barrister Obiorome, well, let's start from Barrister Deji. Of course, we are inundated with the recent demolition of properties in Abuja over the weekend. And of course, as what piques our interest on this show is the issue of non-obedience to court order. We understand that the court is an important instrument of every democratic dispensation or institution, and obedience to court order is very, very paramount for every democracy. So what do you have to say? Because you understand that property ownership is a constitutional right, even in the constitution we operate, and every citizen of Nigeria has a right to own immovable property anywhere in the country. And of course, if the constitution has given you that right, for you to tamper with that right, there must be a justifiable reason. And of course, we heard you all know what is happening in Abuja, the back and forth with court order, no court order, all of that. So what do you have to say?
Well, I think the whole thing boils down to the way we have patterned what we are calling democracy in Nigeria. We have not yet attained to democracy. Neither are we following the rule of law. I think that's why we're having this problem. Because when you don't follow due process in the course of carrying out an executive policy, then what you are going to be doing is injustice, is repression. That's what we have suffered over the years, that we have said that we are having a democratic system. It's so unfortunate the way the executive in this country behaves like military men. Even the military that we fought to stand still, to earn this democracy that we are enjoying, that we are supposed to be enjoying, will not go all out in the manner that the civilian regimes are demolishing the properties of their citizens. I think it is so strange that an executive governor or somebody who is exercising an executive power, even the president or whatever, will order the demolition of houses of his citizens. Of course, the Constitution tells us that sovereignty belongs to the people, from whom all government, whether executive or whatever, derives their power and authority. So, if we have situations in Nigeria where the executive do not even consider the welfare of the people, some people have taken time to spend money to build these houses. This is a government that doesn't provide accommodation. Nigerian government, in the last 8 years of this government, we have not seen any housing project that was carried out either by the Buhari government or even in the plan of this present government. All over. We have an example in Lagos where a governor who has not built one single house for anybody is demolishing the houses of his own citizens, or people that voted for him.
They didn't follow the approval laws of the state.
It's not true. It's not all those people whose houses were demolished that did not follow approvals. And let me mention this also. Who gives the approval? Do you know how long it takes to get an approval in Lagos? Do you know the razzmatazz that is involved and the corruption that is involved in getting maybe an approval from government? And who controls land in Lagos State? As of today, you discover that if you want to buy land, you cannot access government land to buy. Many people still buy land from the owners, the Omoniles in Lagos. And when you buy land from Omonile, you will still go to government to ratify. And when you apply to government for ratification, they still collect money from you. But that will not stop them from demolishing your house if they feel that they need that property or they need that area, particularly because of public interest, on grounds of overriding public interest. But that's not even the point I'm making. The point I'm making is the recklessness and the lawlessness with which government demolish houses of their citizens. It's never done. If you want to acquire property, the constitution is clear. There's a due process for it, for acquisition of land or property by the government. All right? You have to follow the due process. You serve the notice to the people. Either notice of demolition, you follow it up with all other notices, and you set deadline. And sometimes you, as a responsible government, you are even supposed to make alternative provisions for settlement, for resettlement of those
illegal.
It doesn't matter whether they are illegal. They are citizens, and they have a right to a housing under the constitution. It is the failure of government to provide houses that have led to the need for the citizens going around to get their own land to build their houses.
Okay.
So let me also round up by saying this, that the government is not following due process. We have situations even in this Lagos where government will acquire land from individuals, and they will go and transfer those land and sell it to other private people, which is not the essence of acquisition of public property.
Yeah, of course, we've heard about the Shangisha
of course, so many of them.
And the Supreme Court has had opportunity.
So many of them over the years. It's unfortunate the way our government go about as if they are lords of the manor, as if they can do anything and get away with it. I think it's a kind of recklessness on the part of the executive. They don't want to engage their citizens.
Yeah, it's part of the recklessness of the executive, but it's also part of the laxity of the judiciary. Of course, that is why we are praying that, of course, the judiciary should rise to the occasion. And that brings us to the role of the judiciary in all of this.
Yes.
Yes, because this is not the first time. Of course, we saw what happened in Kano when the governor took over and was demolishing. Of course, he couldn't have obtained court orders within 1 week of taking over. And we are seeing the same thing repeating in Federal Capital Territory. What is the role of the judiciary in all of this? Because since the Constitution has said that you have a right, there is a process before you can demolish citizens' property. So what is the role of the judiciary? I'm sure that they have not stamped their feet on all of this in the past, and that is why it is still reoccurring.
Yes, the whole saga is quite disturbing. First, the Constitution has made it clear there are three arms of government. And the judicial arm is the arm that is foremost in the issue of rule of law. And then we remember that in the United States of America, when in 1789, they came up with Judiciary Act of that year, 1789. It was made clear that every American citizen, including the president, the Congress, and every other person, was under the law, subject to the law. And that is what we profess to practice in Nigeria, that our Constitution is supreme, and that there must be adherent to the provisions in the Constitution as well as rule of law. And then the question is, when an officer of government who is aware that there is a subsistent court order, upon what grounds will such an officer proceed to do what has been restrained effectively by that order? That's the question that is begging for answers, and none seem to be coming. Because court orders are sacrosanct. Whether you believe or you don't believe in the order, whether you like it or you don't like it, you are under duty to comply with it, except you have appealed against it and there is an order staying the enforcement of that judgment or order of court. You are under obligation to obey it.
Even if you are the president of Nigeria.
Yes, no matter who you are. And then in yesteryears, even when the then Governor General had in him the executive powers and the legislative powers all rolled in one, he deposed the Oba of Lagos, and the Oba went to court, and then the Privy Council, which was the highest court in charge of this country told the Governor General, in the case of Eleko, and yes, that he doesn't have the powers to do so without a law backing it up. What are we saying? That everything done by anybody in power must be provided for by the law. Once you go outside the law, you're your own. That's ultra-virus. So, in this instance, where in the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, the minister and some other officials have gone to demolish buildings, properties that belong to Nigerians, even if they belong to foreigners, it doesn't matter. When there are said to be substitute court orders, it is contempt. It does not matter who the person is, because the president of this country is still subject to the law of the land and is under obligation to obey the orders duly given by courts in this country. And that reminds me once again of what we had cause to advocate in this forum in the past, that we need an amendment to the Constitution, particularly section 150, 174, 195, 211, and 318, as it pertains to the Attorney General of the Federation and the Minister of Justice.
Yes.
Because the Attorney General of the Federation is the chief law officer of the country. It is under his domain to ensure that no matter who you are, you must comply with judgments and orders of courts of competent jurisdiction duly made. Whereas the minister of the government of the federation advises the government, the ministers, and is loyal to the government in power. Yeah, it is fused. It's not good for us. And of course, we will remember the case of Ojukwu and the government of Lagos State, where the Supreme Court, came out with undoubting courage to tell the government of Lagos State that it will amount to timidity for the government to disobey the order of court and also come to seek redress from the same court.
At the same time.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And the Supreme Court had to tell the court to the government to go and first of all comply with that order.
Yeah, by Sobio, maybe because we are out of our time, so let me ask you the final question, yes. Because it seems that the consequence for disobedience of court orders by public officials is not severe enough. Shouldn't disobedience, because this is like a dog eating the bone that is hung or this neck. As a public official, your duty, you have sworn to the country to protect the laws of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Yes. And disobedience to court order, of course, you've said this context. Shouldn't that be a prohibitive factor to contesting for even further public office in future if you disobey, subsistent court order as a public officer? Because
I think that is if our judges will make it so. Now, let me say this: the reason why this is becoming a culture, this lawlessness, this bestiality. Let me use a very terrible word. Because for government to demolish the houses of his people, to me, is bestiality. Is the height of tyranny. Is the height of dictatorship. And that's why the judiciary, like he has said, that's why the judiciary is there to make sure that the people are protected, the rights of people are protected from a lawless government, a lawless executive, like we have in this country today. Now, I think our judges have been timid in this country. Sorry to use this word. And that is why this practice has become a culture or a norm among the executives. They believe that nothing will happen. But in the past, attorney generals have been held responsible for the actions of even their government and people who are in that government. So I think our judges should be more stern about protection of the right of individuals. Like I said it on this forum sometime before, that the function of judges is not to protect government. It's not to protect the executive. The executive does not have any right or any fundamental rights. It is the people that have rights, and it is the function of the judiciary to protect that right against a Leviathan like the government. That's why constitutionalism is set in place. That's why rule of law is set in place. That's why democracy is what it is. So until our judges are bold and courageous enough to contempt these elements who are reckless in destroying the life of people, we will continue to have this practice, this norm. So that's my view about it.
All right, Pastor Deji, we are almost out of time on today's episode. Of course, we would love to go on and on this. So, Barrister Obiorome, we would like to get your last words on these two topics before we call it a wrap on this episode.
Yes, you see, my last, take on this is that, in as much as I agree that there are a lot of people who have disobeyed court orders with impunity, there are still some judges who have stood their ground that, except those orders are complied with, the complainant will be sent to jail. There are some like that. There are some courageous judges.
We need to see it.
Yes, there are some courageous judges. And then we need to, the message must be sent across the entire globe of this nation that court orders must be obeyed. And whosoever that fails to obey court order must be punished according to law. And of course, like my brother said, before demolition, which is punitive, can be carried out, there are processes. Somebody who has already gotten a government approval, certificate of occupancy, whatever it is that government has given him, you turn around to say you don't want that structure there. Why? If for any reason, and the only permissible reason which the law recognizes is overriding public interest. That's one. Two, there's no other alternative. There's no other alternative. And then, in such a situation, you must grant the owner of the property a post-acquisition here, a pre-acquisition hearing. That is, before you even acquire, before you do anything, you must grant the person or persons an opportunity to be heard. That's what the law says. And then, if for any reason it is proved that is overriding public interest and the government acquires it, there must be adequate compensation. Not just compensation, but adequate compensation.
All right, Barrister, we're almost out of time. There must be adequate compensation before any demolition. Barrister Deji, let's get your last one in 30 seconds.
Yes, just to pick it up from what you have said, prompt and adequate compensation. The Constitution provides for that, apart from the due process that is involved. So I think I want to appeal to our judges, because the duty of protecting the rights of people is in their hands. And until they begin to make a scapegoat of some of these kind of elements, like the Minister of Federal Capital that is responsible for this disobedience, until they make a scapegoat of people like that, we will continue to have this kind of recklessness in the country.
All right, Barrister Deji, until our judges begins to make a scapegoat of some of these court disobedient actors of court orders, who will continue to have cases like this.